What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're covering some more r/am I the butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below. But if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too, as it all really helps out our channel. It really does. And just a huge thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here. Really amazing stuff. Good on you for doing that, and I thank you for it. And let's crack on with today's stories. Much love, guys. Now we're starting with a spicy one from Lou to Pab with, am I the arsehole for yelling at my nurse for her prank? My first Reddit post, sorry for my ramble in advance. After getting some blood work done at a doctor's appointment, I, 34 female, was waiting for my doctor to return when a nurse came in. She congratulated me on my positive pregnancy results and said along the lines of, "Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't wait for the doctor to go over everything." I was stunned. I felt so many emotions at once, and I started sobbing instantly. My husband and I had decided 6 months prior that we should try to start a family. I lost him October 2020 to a car accident. The idea of him living on, even in that split second, had me so overcome that, like I said, I broke down, happy as hell, but still crying. Not even 5 seconds later she said, "Oh, don't cry, I'm literally just messing with you. Don't worry, you're not pregnant, lol. I can tell you don't want kids. Haha, whatever that means." Now, I'm not proud of this, but I lost my shit. I called her a punt and said some pretty awful things before leaving, not even waiting for the doctor to come back. Now, I'm thinking I'm a complete arsehole for laying into a young nurse who I assume was just trying to lighten the mood, and would have no idea what I've been through with pregnancies. And that is the whole point there. They don't know what you've been through, so to make a joke about pregnancy, absolutely insane. And there's so many reasons why that is an incredibly insensitive joke, even if you can call that a joke. There's infertility, there's abuse victims, victims of rape and things like that. And even what OP said in their story, which is absolutely crazy. Who would think that's a good thing to say? And I wonder how many other times this joke has been used. Is it something she does all the time when she enters the doctor's office? Very unprofessional, and I wouldn't be surprised if you went back in there and took this further, because you know how much that hurt you in itself, and the feelings that you had in that moment, that split second, as you said, happy as hell, and you were still crying, and then 5 seconds later she turns around and goes, "Not." It's like, wow, come on now. But Iffy Silly says, not the arsehole. What she did was very unprofessional. I would honestly file a complaint even. And Don Grimm says, go back, raise a complaint. She is not fit to be a nurse. Jesus Christ, how is that even remotely funny? And Lena says, not the arsehole. That was really unprofessional and cruel of her. Pregnancy is never a joke. And Vanellope Zero says, no, not the arsehole. She was so unprofessional. Your situation is exactly why you don't make jokes like that. Oh my fucking god, I'd be filing a complaint with her office, and I am so sorry for the loss of your husband. Awful for it to happen at any time, but extra tough to have to deal with it in the middle of a pandemic. And Agreeable Asparagus says, not the arsehole, she should know better. This is exactly why pregnancy isn't something to be joked about. I'm so sorry for your loss. Now, I turn this one to you guys. Would you file a complaint if you received a comment or a, air quotes, joke like that? Let me know in the comments below. And our next story comes from Difficulty Safety. Am I the arsehole, female 33, for kicking my stepson, male 18, out after he got injured and could no longer help me? Oh my word, here we go again. I recently got injured in a car crash and currently have very minimal movement in my lower body. However, a partial, even possibly full recovery is expected with surgery and rehab. I work as a therapist, so I'm thankful for my ability to work from home, but money is still really tight. My husband does contract work, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, so he isn't around to help me. We have a spare bedroom, and since I do need help with little things as I'm recovering, we invited my husband's son to come live with us. It seemed like a perfect solution. He just broke up with his girlfriend, was strapped for cash, and needed a place to stay. We said that he could live here rent-free for as long as he likes, as long as he helps me with the little things I'm no longer able to do for myself. It was going great for the first little while. Him and I have never been that close, so it's really nice to get to know each other and spend some quality time with each other. However, he started going out and drinking with his friend recently, and he got really wasted, blacked out, and injured himself pretty bad. We covered most of his hospital bills, even though we're disappointed that he let this happen. However, considering that he can no longer help me and that we had an extra expense, we're going to have to evict him and rent out the room to a stranger for money. We offered to rent him the room, but he can't afford it. He broke down crying, saying he has nowhere to go. He recently lost his job due to COVID, and that I was cruel to evict him while he was injured. He said there must be another way that he can make up the rent. He has nowhere to go. He's trying to get me to relate to him by being injured, but mine was not my fault, whereas his was due to reckless drinking. I don't feel like I have much choice but to evict him. Would I be the arsehole for doing this? For those of you who ask, living with his mum is not an option. She lives out of the country. Now, I know a lot of you from past experiences when I post this, but I'm never going to change my mind on this. Yes, he made a mistake drinking, but kicking him out? Where's your empathy? And I know, again, you guys hate me when I talk about empathy and stuff like that, and empathy only goes so far. But this is a kid who's down on his luck. You took him in. He got injured, now you're kicking him out. I mean, come on, man. And this is a therapist too. A therapist with little empathy. That bodes really well. And I'd be fascinated to know the dad's take on this one too. Yes, you're the arsehole, in my opinion, of course. But Dream Suggester says, you're the arsehole, you get injured, he moves in to help you. He gets injured, you kick him out. Which one of these people do you think is the arsehole? Instead, Motherfuckily says, info, what kind of therapist are you? Other than least compassionate and empathetic kind. And Tree 5003 says, you're the arsehole, regardless of whether he was being reckless or not. To kick an injured teenager out with nowhere to go in the middle of a pandemic is just beyond cruel. And Jabber in Blue Jeans says, an 18-year-old made a mistake and now you're going to make him homeless. This just seems cruel. You're the arsehole. And Shermum4 says, you're the arsehole, 18 is barely an adult. Barely. You already demanded that a teenager become your personal caregiver for room and board, which is pretty bad on its own. And then when he makes a mistake and gets hurt, your first idea is that he should be evicted. Oh, and you plan to rent a room out to a stranger, so you still won't have a free caregiver, so really that won't help you either. Your husband is an arsehole for even allowing this. If you need care, then you need a daytime caregiver, not a teenager. Your husband has an obligation to both you and his child. His child is not yet self-sufficient, which is okay at 18. An eviction will follow him for years and make it hard for him to find a home. I am also shocked that you claim to be in a vulnerable position when would be okay with a stranger living in your home. Now, I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation? Let me know in the comments below. And our next story comes from OKMaximum592. Am I the arsehole for hanging up on my daughter when she called? I, 45 male, have been a single father to Jenny, 21 female, for mostly all of her life. As soon as Jenny was born, her mother walked out on both of us and I haven't heard or seen her since. I tried to contact her, but after 5 years of fruitless searches, PIs, court dates, etc., I gave up and just decided I was going to raise Jenny alone. I will admit that I wasn't the best father, working late nights, sleeping when I wasn't working, etc., but I did my best to provide for my daughter. Everything was going okay. Jenny was an average B+ student, played the flute, did basketball, until she went to high school. Long story short, she fell into a bad crowd and her life fell apart. She started staying out late every night, her grades dropped to Fs, cussing and fighting back against me, etc. I cut back my hours at work to try to be more of a father to her, but she wouldn't have any of it. She said it was too late and once she turned 18, she was moving out the house and never coming back. I begged and pleaded for her to stay, that I care about her. I apologised for not being there more, but I explained that I'm human and truly want to make this work. She had none of it, and true to her word, at 18, she packed her bags and left. I tried to get contact with her and even called her friends, but they didn't know or wouldn't tell me where she was. Again, the most important woman walked out of my life and I was there alone to pick up the pieces. The next 2 years were a black hole of depression. I barely had the strength to get out of bed most days, but all that changed when I met Dawn. Dawn was a new co-worker and we hit it off instantly. She listened, understood, and helped me pull myself out of depression. We bought a house together 2 years ago and we've been making it ever since. Luckily, COVID has not affected us because since we can both work from home, Dawn told me a couple of weeks that she's pregnant. For the first time in my life, I am safe, secure, and I don't have to worry about the future. I can just focus on the present. That is until last week. I received a call from Jenny which surprised me because I changed my phone number. She said she was sorry for the way she acted and wanted to know if she could live with me. Apparently when she left, she hooked up with her boyfriend and thought they would make a happy life together. Surprise, surprise, no high school education and a flaky boyfriend who cheats was not a smart idea. I told her that it was too late. I was finally happy with my current life and I didn't want to deal with her drama. She made her choices and she has to live with them. So I hung up the phone and blocked the number. I feel like I shouldn't have hung up on her like that, but I was still hurt that she ran off, so am I the arsehole? And there's a tiny little update which doesn't give much clarity, but there's an update anyway, after the comments of course, so we'll head straight to them. With KindleFan12 saying, so, you pretty much neglected your daughter the whole time she was growing up after her mother ran out. She began acting out as a direct result of that neglect. Only then did you try making an effort. You have now found a new partner and having a do-over baby from who you do plan to be present. And when presented with a second chance with Jenny, you call her understandable distress over her upbringing or lack thereof, drama, and block her. How are you not the arsehole? You're the arsehole. And Freakish Nightmare says, I wrote and deleted so many words in my comment, but I just wanted to point out that from how you wrote this post, it somehow sounds like you in a way treated your daughter as some form of stand-in wife. And I say that because you described her as the most important woman in your life, almost inappropriately. And now that a new woman comes along, you don't want anything to do with your kid because you're happy now. As for the thing with your daughter, she did fall into a bad crowd. She was in her impressionable teens, and she thought that she found the love of her life, and you knew that was the case. And I really don't know, but something feels wrong here. And Dermic says, you're the arsehole. You say she was the most important woman in your life, and yet your actions didn't confirm that. You condition your parent love on a basis of having your expectations met. I'm not sure you were meeting the expectations of your daughter. I'm not saying you should let your daughter live with you, but dismissing her like that is shit as fuck. I hope you will be a better dad to your next baby. And Any Consolation says, you're the arsehole. Her mother walked out on her when she was very young, and you threw yourself into work. You didn't think you needed to change until she was in high school and fell in with a bad crowd. So for approximately 16 or so years, you worked too much and didn't spend much time with your kid. Of course, making a change then would be too late in the eyes of a child who learned not to rely on you for more than material needs. She's 21, her brain is still growing and learning. She made the mistakes a child would make. She didn't walk out on you, you weren't there for her when she needed you, and now you're not there again. Anyway, so here is the edit. So, I didn't expect this post to blow up as it did. In the comments, it was pretty unanimous that I'm an arsehole, but I've gotten a lot of messages telling me I wasn't. I apologise for not responding to everyone. There were a lot. I had a day to think about it and I decided that I am indeed an arsehole. I let my anger and emotions get the better of me and I did something I regret. I unblocked the number and texted Jenny an apology and asked if we could talk. I hope she responds soon. The text is unread. As for the people talking about incest or whatever, you all are sick and need help. Jenny is over 18 and my daughter, hence why I said she's the most important woman in my life, and I still care about her despite everything. Now, I turn this one to you guys. What do you think of this situation, and do you think there is a way forward here? Let me know in the comments below. And our next story comes from Dragon Balls. Am I the arsehole for being upset with my mum for not gifting me the house my parents want me to inherit? Okay, hear me out. I'm grateful for my parents and everything they've done for me throughout my life. They've provided me a comfortable life without having to worry financially, but I work and have a career of my own in a respectable field, so please read this through because there's more to it than just the title, in my opinion. We live in California in a high cost of living area. My parents bought their house back in the 1980s, so the property tax on the house is still low, about 6k annually. The value of the house appreciated a lot in the last 30 years, and my parents have told me they'd like for me to inherit the house when they pass. Hopefully a long time from now. California passed Prop 19 last November, which changes how property tax is assessed on inherited property. Prop 19 comes into law next month. Before Prop 19, when property is inherited, the property tax value is also inherited, meaning that the property tax stays the same. However, after Prop 19 becomes law, this changes. The property will be reassessed to market value, so that property tax will jump to about 26k a year for the house my parents want me to inherit. The way around this is for my parents to transfer the property before Prop 19 comes into effect next month. My dad thinks it's a good idea to transfer the house now, if we still can. It may be too late due to paperwork process times. However, my mum doesn't want to. Her logic is that she needs security that she'll have a house to live in because she's concerned that I'd kick her out, which I would never do. The thought of that didn't cross my mind as a risk. I've been upset with my mum because of this. Her insecurities, a whole other issue itself, will result in about an additional 20k a year in property tax if I want to hold on to the house after they pass. I'd eventually live in it, but there's definitely a period in which I won't. I like the house and see myself raising the family in it, but that additional amount of property tax makes a big difference financially. There are other options like selling the house when they pass and not deal with property taxes, but that's a whole other thing. The house will be more valuable to me than the money. I'm aware of the tax benefits to selling, but that's a whole other thing. Anyways, it's the house my sister and I grew up in and that my parents worked for, so keeping it for generations would be my preferred route. It just seems like a no-brainer to me to take the opportunity to keep the property tax lower, but at the same time I feel like I'm arguing with my mum like a spoiled brat. I should be able to afford the prop tax payments, but not easily, without factoring in a family. Am I the arsehole? I came into this one expecting your usual inheritance, someone complaining that they're getting a free house and all that sort of stuff. Bit different on this one, so we'll start off with clever username saying, "You're the arsehole, you're getting a free house. If you did not have the house, in the future you would have to pay much more than 26k a year for living expenses." And your mum has a point. You never know how people change or what will happen over the years. They'll basically be living in your house, which means they will have no legal control over anything. Stop being entitled and say thank you for the free house. And St. Elvis says, "You're the arsehole, why shouldn't you pay the full property tax based on the current appraised value? Society needs money to run. Please don't cheat the rest of us out of our fair share." And YMMV says, "You're the arsehole, I'm glad the law got changed because situations like this are starving your local units of government that depend on property taxes to fund their operations. How about if you agreed to keep the same roads and libraries and schools you had back in the 1980s? No improvements, no repairs, no new or replaced infrastructure. As for your mother, who's to say she won't need the equity in the house to pay her bills in the future? It sounds like you want her to turn over her biggest asset to you so you can save money in the future. If I were her, I'd look at how entitled you are and never believe that 1. You would provide a home for me without complaint, and 2. You'd pay all of my living expenses including medical bills until I died a natural death. What if one of your parents had a stroke or a bad accident and need to live in a nursing home? Where is the money from that going to come from? Suggest your father read Shakespeare's King Lear and see what happens to parents who give all their money and property away." And DSZ says, and quotes, "I'm arguing with my mum like a spoiled brat," and then says, like, "You're the arsehole." And PS, this has come from someone who lives in LA, who has older relatives with a localish house that is slated to come my way eventually. How about you quit whining and practice some freaking gratitude? Do you have any idea how lucky we are? I'm sure you're a terrific person in the majority aspects of life, but you're being such an arsehole here. Give thanks for what you got and let the rest go. Now, I turn this one to you guys. What do you think of this situation and how would you deal with it? Let me know in the comments below. And our next story comes from a throwaway account. Am I the arsehole for refusing to pretend to be a happy family? I, 15 female, and my brother, 13 male, are really close. Our parents split up 4 years ago and it's kind of been hell. Our mum met a guy, Jay, who has 3 kids and has progressed pretty fast. They moved in with us 6 months ago. Yes, in the middle of a pandemic, despite my brother being immune compromised. Our dad is trying to use this as leverage to get custody, but it's going slow. Anyway, his kids are kind of awful. We had to fight tooth and nail not to be put in a room with them. Me and his daughter and my brother with his 2 sons. Thankfully, Jay decided my brother was too unpredictable and didn't want him sharing a room with his precious boys. My brother and I now share my room. All 3 of them, 16 male, 12 female, plus 9 male, are brats. They will throw themselves on the floor with tantrums when they don't get their way. We hate them, they hate us. No hard feelings. Honestly, this would all be fine if we could just go live with our dad. Recently, they've been trying to push the perfect family dynamic, and my brother and I have not made it easy for them. Every time my stepdad mentions having 2 daughters, I would loudly say, "No, you're not my fucking dad," which generally pisses them off. My brother has started doing it also. Occasionally my mum will mention my sister, at which point I completely ignore her because I don't have a sister. It's causing a huge rift and my mum is fighting with Jay a lot more over us. I don't think I'm really in the wrong. I have one brother and Jay is not my dad. My dad thinks we should tone it down, but I don't see the point. My mum isn't going to let him have custody, and she kind of seems at a breaking point with us. She'll either give us up or do something that could be used as evidence against her. Now this is 100% and not the arsehole situation. I can't blame you for not wanting to be part of this, air quotes, perfect family dynamic, because that's ridiculous, being forced into that when you don't want it. You know, he isn't your father, you've been forced into this situation, and I can feel the resentment coming from this post in it. But I do question, you know, how quickly this will change and how quickly your dad would be able to get custody of you. Are we talking months and years here? I don't know about this sort of stuff, and it just sounds like Is there a way to make it at least amicable while you're there? I know you don't want them to win and all this kind of thing, and that's how it must feel. Like, you don't want them getting one over on you, and explaining, look, you don't like this perfect family dynamic thing. Can you please just drop it? And then we can at least be civil in the house, rather than, beating yourself down and being angry all the time. And don't get me wrong, I totally understand the anger, but it almost sounds to the point where, you're going to make yourself really depressed by carrying on down this road, rather than just being civil and living till you can actually legally get out of there. And I don't know, that might be nonsense. There might be a better way of doing it, but I'm not too clued up on all the custody of children and all this kind of thing. So I'd love to see some comments below and see what they're going to say. So we're going to start with Consistent Leopard saying, not the arsehole for not wanting to play Happy Family. Jane is family with your mother's choice, not yours. You can't force yourself to feel something that you just don't. However, your father may be right about toning it down for now. Maybe drop the profanity. Otherwise, you're fine. And Mitzi91 says, not the arsehole in not wanting to be forced into a family dynamic that you don't want to be a part of. I do agree with your dad that you need to tone it down. You are still young to be developing this resentment/anger, and I'm sure your dad is just looking out for you by saying tone it down. And Kat Sicario says, not the arsehole. They can't force you to be a happy family, as you clearly are not. And I do understand why you want to keep it going like that. And quotes, my mum isn't going to let him have custody, and she seems kind of a breaking point with us. She'll either give us up or do something that could be used as evidence against her. And then says, but as far as I understand, you can give a statement where you can state that you'd prefer to go live with your dad and the reasons. So till then, you don't have to play nice, but maybe try not to make our life harder for the two of you during the remaining time. Now, what do you think OP can do in this situation? Is it possible that they can just go to court and say, look, I want to live with my dad and that's it, and they would accept that? I'm not sure how it works, so you have to forgive me here. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, once again, guys, thank you for being here today. I hope you did enjoy today's stories. And if you did, you can support the channel further if you choose to do so, but no pressure, of course, by clicking that join button down below for YouTube membership, or clicking the link in the description for Patreon membership and heading on over there. Thank you so much for doing you. You are absolutely amazing. And if you made it this far, you are incredible. Thank you so much. And I will see you in the next one. Much love, guys. Goodbye.